And welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice Radio. I'm your host, David Gornoski. You know, recently I went on a trip and I got to go to Memphis, Tennessee and see where the King grew up, where he did his music over at Sun Studio. I actually got to hold his mic and sing a few Elvis songs myself. One of those days I might share them with you here on the show. But, you know, on that trip, I also went over to Arkansas, and while I was there, I couldn't think of a better place to use the restroom than the Clinton Library. And as I was there, I was looking at their Clinton bookstore, and I said, you know, I wish I had a copy of Juanita Broaddrick's new book, You'd Better Put Some Ice on That, because I'd love to just add it to their book list and let those who are coming to the Clinton Library enjoy that book. I'm glad at this moment to be able to have the author of that book with me, Juanita Broaddrick. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, David. Thank you for asking.
Well, I'm glad to speak with you because A Neighbor's Choice is all about giving a voice to the victims, those who are the underdogs. And I think you fit that bill quite assuredly, because you have been an underdog trying to get your voice out about how you were a survivor of sexual assault by Bill Clinton in the 70s, and you went through a lot of turmoil to try to get your voice properly told.
Oh, yes, I did, David. It was bad. You know, the media and Hillary herself, you know, went after us with a vengeance.
And I remember you told in an interview, you said that Hillary Clinton was very icy in the way she threatened you when you had this incident after the event happened. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, about 3 weeks afterwards.
And that you were at some kind of party, you didn't know she was going to be there, and she showed up.
No, I knew she was going to be there, and I knew that Bill Clinton was going to be there. I went early. You know, we're talking 3 weeks after the rape. And I was still devastated and in a state of shock. But prior to the rape, I had worked in his campaign and set up this fundraiser at my dear friend's home, Buddy and Betty Criswell. They had a beautiful home here, so I had set up the fundraiser up there. Well, as the time grew closer, I knew that I couldn't go. So I told Betty that I would come up, bring her the information of the donors list and some other checks that people had given me for the campaign. And I went up 30 minutes early, you know, to give her the information, apologize I couldn't be there, and that I was going to leave. But before I got out the door, here comes their driver, who was a dear friend. His name was Chuck Watts. He was a local pharmacist. And he came over to me and was just so excited because all the way from the airport, he said they had been asking questions about me. Well, then I knew I had to get out of there before they came in. But I didn't make it. As I start to the door, here comes Hillary Clinton straight for me. And David, as she walked to me, my biggest fear was talking to this woman. I felt so sorry for her. As she walked toward me, I thought, this poor woman that's married to that monster. And she got me before I got out the door, took a hold of my hand, was so sweet, smiling, and said, I just want you to know how appreciative that Bill and I are for everything that you do in this campaign. And I think I just nodded before. I thought I was going to faint, but I just nodded to her and started to walk away. And as I started to walk away, I felt somebody grab me from behind. I turn around, and it's Hillary. And she grabs my arm very firmly, pulls me down to her, and says, do you understand everything you do? And at that moment in time, I felt like she knew what had happened to me and was threatening me.
Wow. And now here we've heard recently Hillary Clinton has been in the news saying she thinks it's fair game to go back and investigate those allegations against Kavanaugh made some 30 or 40 years ago. I think maybe she needs to hear a reckoning from your accusation, too. You're calling for the FBI to look into this, aren't you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, and I tweeted that, and it just went viral instantly, that if she thinks that we ought to go back that far, then let's just go ahead and go back and have the FBI investigate my rape by her husband.
Right. And as you know, I think Juanita Broaddrick, we're talking with Juanita Broaddrick. If you have a question, you can call at 407-916-5400. That's 407-916-5400. And I wanted to have you on because I think your book, You Better Put Some Ice on That, is something that is critical right now, because we can't have people whitewash history. We can't have people rewrite history in a way that allows those who are, you know, in the cool crowd, so to speak, the ones who are popular in Hollywood and music and movies and news, we can't have them not be able to have accountability for things that they have done. And what you are talking about here in this book are extremely grave activities on the part of Bill Clinton, and he has a history of this. I was looking that there's allegations against him going back to his time in college in England and stuff, you know? I mean,
yes,
so this is
Eileen Wellstone.
Yeah, I mean, these are cases that, you know, before he was anything of real high reputation, he was already having a paper trail of accusations levied against him, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, but I didn't realize that when I met him. You know, in Arkansas back in 1978, he was just the hero that had come to save us. And no one knew. I personally did not know about his reputation.
Right, and I have a good friend of mine over in Arkansas named Jefferson Slinkard, and he told me that, you know, there was not a lot of the information out about how violent and vicious the Clintons could be at the time. You know, they were kind of seen as down-home, good old folks, right?
Yes. Oh, I know. But we just didn't know that back then. And we didn't begin to hear any of this until about his second term as governor.
Now, one of the things that makes, you know, an allegation as heavy and as serious as this, you know, have some credibility is having witnesses that you can have told the story near the time of the incident. Do you have those? What was the? Oh,
yes. I traveled to Little Rock to a seminar, and prior to that seminar, Bill Clinton had come to my nursing home and on a campaign tour and met all the patients and everything. And I began to discuss with him about the problems we were having in nursing homes, the reimbursement rate. So he said, if you're ever in Little Rock, please call my office and we'll get together and talk about this. So that's exactly what I did. I went down there 3 weeks after I met him at my nursing home, and we called his office and set up a time, tried to set up a time to meet, and the lady said, well, he's not going to be here today. Let me give you this number. So I told him, I said, I called the number. He answered, and I told him, I said, we're here. I've brought the information. And can we come over at noon to your office and see you? And he said, no, I'm not going to be there today. He said, why don't I just come to your hotel now? And I thought, you know, that's great. I'm not going to have to drive clear across town. So he says, I'll meet you down in the hotel coffee shop. So that was the plan in the beginning. And so I told Norma Rogers, the lady that was traveling with me, she was my director of nursing, I said, you go on to the meeting, and as soon as I'm through in the coffee shop, I'll be right there. Well, when Mr. Clinton gets to the hotel, he calls my room and he says, you know, it's just so crowded down here and there's reporters. Can we just talk about this and have coffee in your room? And so that's how he ended up in my room. And I'm sure I was leery, David, but he was the Attorney General.
Right. And that's a tremendous amount of power. You assume that someone of that position would be impeccable in terms of their, conduct. But it was the opposite is what you've encountered, you're saying.
Oh, exactly. And he was the Attorney General running for governor.
Wow. Now, after the incident happened, did you tell some friends, or what happened with that?
About 30 minutes after the incident, you know, I just was in the room crying and devastated and didn't know what to do. And about 30 minutes later, Norma comes back to the room because I never showed up for the seminar. And she found me in that condition. I mean, torn clothing. My lip was bloodied, and it was also swollen 2 to 3 times the normal size. And when I went to the door and opened it, and she saw me and I saw her, my God, I mean, we both started crying. And I explained to her everything that had happened. And her immediate response was to go get ice for my mouth, of course, being a nurse. And then we sat on the bed, and I explained to her everything that had gone on. And she said, "What do you want to do?" I said, let's just go home. So that's what we did.
And we're speaking here with Juanita Broaddrick. If you want to join the conversation, 407-916-5400. And we'll be right back after these few minutes.